All right, we're back one more time. This is a Gibson Nighthawk. This is the original one that came out years ago. I really like this idea. I think the Gibson were really onto something here. They've got sort of like a hardtail Strat type bridge. They've even slanted that humbucking pickup for the strings to line up. Very simple, volume tone, 5-way switch. I had one guy had left a comment on one of my videos about using black magic marker. Now I've heard of people doing that, and I've had students in the class that like to do that. But really, once you get the lay of the neck where it should be, those high frets, just a couple of passes with a file, and they light right up. So putting black magic marker all over them, it's kind of redundant, really. When you level the frets, like I said, they light, all those high spots light right up. So I don't really see the point in putting black magic marker all over it and possibly putting marker where you don't want it. Anyway, so that's once again neck to body junction. That's where all the action is. That's what we had to correct. Right, this is our first pass of 320 after leveling and recrowning. So as you'll see in the other videos I've done, we use 320 to take out the marks of the file, and then we'll step up the gauges of sandpaper until we get a beautiful finish on this, and finish up with a canvas strop and some jeweler's rouge. Frets are done, so now we got them gleaming, smooth as silk, and dead level, recrowned, polished. Another interesting note about this Gibson Nighthawk is it's a 25 3/8 inch scale, so just slightly less than your Strat, your 25 1/2. So sort of longer scale, higher radius on the fingerboard, much closer to a Tele or a Strat than your typical Les Paul. I'll cinch it down with those neck straps, feed the strings through, and then flip it back onto its back onto the padded rails, and we'll get on with the rest of the job. I want to sort of put to rest this debate. I know that there's all kinds of people that get into heated discussion about the validity of a compensated nut, and you really don't need it. And let me take the time to explain step by step. So the open string and the 12th fret are in tune, and I've got the bridge saddles all lined up. So I'm going to demonstrate step by step. This just came in this morning, American Strat that he's had issues tuning as well. I'm doing a compensated nut on both these guitars. So before I go there, here's our Gibson with the regular Gibson stock nut. This is an interesting guitar. It's got a very, very high radius. I made up my little self-adjusting radius gauge, which is basically foam, and that just kind of slips underneath the strings like so, and it self-adjusts. So you adjust the outside strings to where you want your action to be, and then you bring up the middle 4 strings so that they just kiss the edge of that, and you've got a perfect match to your fingerboard radius. This also has something to do with intonation. You got to make sure that you're traveling the same distance from the string to the crown of the fret in order to keep the guitar perfectly in tune. Here's our open E string, low E, and 12th fret. Those two notes are in tune, right? E and E. There we go, right? Open string, 12th fret. This is what everybody does, right? Okay, here's the D, open string, 12th fret. Open first string, 12th fret. Okay. Now, we're going to go back to our open E string, and I'm going to play the note F. Oh, it's sharp, right? Okay. Let's play our open A, perfectly in tune. B flat or A sharp. It's sharp, right? Open D, first fret. Ooh, that's sharp too. Well, so let's get that 3rd string in tune, and G sharp. Ooh, that's sharp too. B and the note C, sharp. Okay, so we've basically radiused the underside of that shelf, and we've got this set up so it's a good press fit. I'm just going to come around here. That's the cross-sectional view of what we've got. I use the original nut, we keep it tight to the original spec. Alright, this is the next step of roughing in the compensated values. and get rid of most of that ragged edge that you saw in that last clip. This is our next step. We've basically got those strings spaced out beautifully across the width of that nut. Erred on the side of caution here, leaving the strings all just a little bit too high. Now we're going to whisper them down and get them to the perfect height. We filed all 6 nut slots now to the proper height. And this is another subject that always kind of sparks heated debate. What are the values, or how high should the string be at the nut? Well, I'm going to answer that question in a second. Watch this. Alright, so how high should the string height be in the nut slot? Let me answer that question. Okay, here's our moment of truth. Here's our low E string and the note F. Our open A string and the note A sharp. Open D string and D sharp. Open G string and G sharp. Open B string and C. Open high E string and F. There you go. Proof's in the pudding. Here's our B on the 7th fret of the low E string and B on the 19th fret. Here's our 7th fret A string E note and corresponding 19th fret. Our D string A, octave A. Here's our G string 7th fret note D and corresponding note on the 19th fret, D. Here's our open G and 12th fret G. Here's our open B, 12th fret B, F sharp and F sharp. And lastly, our open E string, first string, 12th fret, 7th fret B and 19th fret B. That guitar is as close to being in tune as humanly possible. Alright, we've gone to all this trouble getting this thing perfect. Intonation, action, string spacing, everything's done. Now that everything has been done, we'll flush it on both sides to perfection. One last thing I need to point out with Gibson guitar nuts. So you got to make sure that that nut is a good press fit. No apparent looseness or tightness. It needs to go in, press fit into place, and here's why. The headstock itself flexes and butts up against this end of the nut. Not done properly, that loose nut could encourage the headstock to break. This video was not made for everybody to run out and change the nut on their Les Paul. Very exacting task. Find a guy that can do the job right and pay the man. So, in summary, we made our little self-adjusting radius gauge with a little bit of foam on there to line up the radius to match perfectly to the fingerboard. We dressed, leveled, recrowned, and polished those upper frets at the neck junction, and then did a full dress end to end. We just finished our compensated nut, and this is set up for 10 to 46 strings, concert pitch, and this guitar will never be better than it is right now. I'm just about to start the same job on this American Strat. Compensated nut, fret dress, level, crown, and polish at the neck junction, set the pickups up, and make a self-adjusting radius gauge. Same deal. So both these guitars, the Strat and the Nighthawk, are essentially getting the same treatment.